Hello friends, happy Saga Thursday. Rodge here, aka the Wisco Horndog. Welcome to your regular source for Saga, the miniatures game goodness. And this week, as you might have guessed from the title, we've got a Saga Spanish battle board review. The first from the Crescent and Cross supplement. Now, we actually took a look at the Naffitude from the Crescent and Cross with Furious Fensky in earlier 2017. So this isn't our first dabbling in this book per se, but is the first full warband review. And to help me out, I've got Monty from the TwinCitiesGamer Blog, and this guy is a freaking cool cat. Definitely check out his blog if you haven't yet. I mentioned it in last week's video, and we are gonna take a look at these here Spanish. He is a real fan of these guys, and we're gonna have some fun. We're not going to wait anymore. Let's check it out. All right, we're here with Monty from the TwinCitiesGamer Blog. How's it going, man?
Good. How about yourself, Rodge?
I'm excellent. You are a real Spanish aficionado. We chatted a little bit, and you've actually collected them a couple times. Is that right?
Yes. I painted up a Gripping Beast Spanish warband, and I liked it. I sold it off, and then I did another version with Crusader miniatures. They're really quite nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people, if you follow the Saga Dark Ages Facebook group or your blog, you can see photos of those guys. And they were in my Adepticon video, showcasing the armies. And yeah, they look great. Nice bold colors, and loving that yellows that you worked in there.
Yep, little bright.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think they looked awesome. And then we actually played at Adepticon, and that was my first taste of the Spanish, where you were teamed up with John Redman, correct?
Right.
He was a Christus Milite, and you were shutting some shit down in our game there.
Yeah, you guys wiggled out of it though. We had you, and you wiggled out of it and pulled out the win. Nicely done.
Yeah, I don't feel bad about that, just because of the number of saves that John was making with this Hearthguard as they plowed into everything. I think he made John. Like 16 out of 21 or something. So
that's about right.
He was on a roll with those guys. We took out probably 3 or 4 units before they came to a stop. It was pretty epic. But
great game.
Yeah, it was really cool playing against the Spanish. And then I'm like, why don't people play these? It seemed like you had like total control of the board, but then you're like, oh, well, hold on, wait till you see the troops I'm using here. And then it started to make a little bit more sense. I guess you have to look at your army unit selection combined with your board to get the full picture. So shall we take a look at those choices?
Take a look.
Okay, I'm looking right now. So the Warlord and the Hearthguards are mounted on horses.
That's right.
So that's not too shabby.
Nope.
Being mounted isn't usually too bad.
Love the speed.
Yeah, the interesting thing is when we get to Warriors then, because they have the option to be on foot. If they're foot sloggers, they're just normal dudes basically.
Yep.
But then if they're mounted, they're total javelins, and then their armor is reduced by 1 in melee as well as shooting, so they're just 3 pluses.
Correct.
So I kind of vaguely remember in our game getting into these guys and doing some damage.
That's right. Kick some butt once you catch them, right?
Mm-hmm. So you got an interesting dichotomy there between the mounted warriors and the mounted Hearthguard. And then finally got the levies. They can be armed with bows or javelins. And then a little bit of fun here. A single unit of levies can exchange their bows or javelins for crossbows, but levies take an extra fatigue at the end of each of their shooting phase that they use those things.
Correct.
So your rate of fire goes down, a little more dice intensive to kind of power them up. But okay, so looking pretty good so far. A mix of shooting troops and fighty troops with an emphasis on the speed. Any comments about that so far?
Yeah, so their board, as you'll see here, really pushes you towards the mounted. Some people will take 8-foot warriors, maybe even 12-foot warriors out of 3 points of warriors, simply to like in a tournament, so you have the ability to walk into terrain and take cover and hold stuff. But I put them all on ponies. I like the speed. I use them in Iberia, and they die quickly, so you can do foot, but I think you'll see as we go through the board, it really does push you towards like going for mounted as much as you can.
Okay. Yeah. I guess we'll get into that. And so we're looking at our first Crescent and Cross board. So I'm going to have to get a handle on that. So up across the top, we have the usual goodies. And already it's looking kind of weird, kind of fun.
Yep.
So we'll have to jump into this. And unfortunately, this looks like some rich Spanish descriptions of these troops.
Can I take a stab at pronouncing it?
Yeah, go for it.
Only because, like, if you're going to run the Spanish, you should pronounce the pronunciation or practice it a little bit, right? Even with a beer. So this is as close as I can get it. Caballeros and jinetes would be like close. The J is kind of like an H. And the caballeros are your knights or your half guard, and your jinetes are your light, fast warriors.
Okay, cool. That sounds a lot better than what I would have been able to do. The Caballeros I had, but yeah, I
was a little tricky.
Jinetes?
Yeah, that's all I can do. After all that Spanish, I can do a J. Sounds like an H, so nicely done.
Okay, so that one is activate a mounted unit, and you can use all 3 dice for that. So warriors, Hearthguards, warlord. You still won't be able to activate your levies with those, as they're little foot sloggers. And then, is this pejones?
Close enough, yep.
Is that how you say it?
Yep, that's your foot, and that's where, like, this is already where you see the breakdown. Your mounted warrior go on any die, and here, for your foot warrior, you need a semi-rare or a rare. So already you're like, man. And trust me, you need those semi-rare for the rest of these board plays, so you don't, if you can avoid it, you kind of want to not use your semi-rare dice to just move your foot warriors around.
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out there. And going on to Iberia, the next one. Now this one he used with great success. So this one uses the semi-rare and the rare. It's an activation, reactivation ability. Immediately after an enemy activation has been resolved, activate one of your mounted units for a movement. So that is pretty awesome. And the significance of it being up top there is you can load up two, 3 or more dice to activate it multiple times.
Exactly, and this is a tricky part. It came up in the Grand Melee just because people don't see the Spanish a lot. So the question was like, when you go to play out of your Iberia pool, does the unit go one time and then have to wait each time they react? You can actually, if you had 3 in there, you could potentially burn all 3 after one enemy activation. You know, run in, shoot, run out, or mess around. So it's very powerful, and moving in the enemy's turn really messes them up.
That's cool. Yeah, is there any further restrictions? So it says activate for a movement. Could you go into combat?
You could, and that's why, like, you kind of like, you know, the like a typical build, you'll have like 2 points of Hearthguard mounted, and you kind of wait, and if someone kind of messes up as they're moving around, their warlord's out in the open, and you can hit them. Boy, chase them down with Iberia and see if you can snatch that warlord.
Okay, badass. That's really cool. Yeah. So normally, you know, there's kind of a skirmishy boards, but they often have a little asterisk on the bottom that says you can't engage in melee with this activation. I'm thinking of a few different boards, but this one, you can use it to scoot off, and you could probably have some fun with that, where you just keep using it to move away, and then, you know, turn 5 or 6, all of a sudden you charge in a melee. You're like, whoa. Wait, what? I thought you had to just go away.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, cool. Activation pool, that looks normal. And then the combat pool is a melee or shooting reaction. So you cannot use the pool to add to your shooting volleys, if I'm reading that correctly.
It's tough enough for the enemy, so they're not going to give you like an extra leg up by piling dice into your shooting. You're already a shooty warband, so they don't want to give you too many advantages.
Yeah, okay. This looks cool so far. I kind of like the mix between the mounted and the foot. It's a little fun way to differentiate it from the different boards. So do you want to going down to the bottom or start on the left? Or,
sure. Yeah.
Any way you want to navigate the board, go for it.
Yeah, let's start with opportunity shot. Do you want to read that one, or should I?
Let the world hear your beautiful tones, Monty.
Okay, you asked for it. You got it. Opportunity shot. So this is an activation reaction, and use this ability after an enemy unit has ended its movement within M of one of your units and not engaged in melee. Your unit immediately resolves a shooting against the enemy unit, if possible. So you just kind of, if I don't use this one a lot because of my style of play, but if you have like, your levy skirmishers out there, or if if they're moving up on your Hinates, your mounted warriors with their javelins, if they end their movement with an M, you can pop off a shot.
Yeah, it's looking good. Kind of an out of order type shooting thing. It just looks like just a common dice. So as you mentioned, if you can use it on your levy, you can. You don't have to use the uncommon or rare. You can just use a common to get an activation out of them. So, not too shabby. I guess we'll have to see what other kind of shooting abilities are on here. But do you end up using this one? I guess it's kind of conditional on them coming at you. But if you have warriors and stuff like that are kind of vulnerable to melee, you might be able to suck them in.
Exactly. So this is just me, but let me just throw out like a kind of typical Spanish build. You've got your 2 points of mounted Hearthguard. That's your fist that's waiting to use Iberia and smash someone when you get a chance. Kind of hold them back a little bit. I usually have 12 mounted warriors queued up, so I get maximum shooting. But they're very vulnerable to melee. If you catch those guys, you're going to just pull them down and kill them. So I try to make my plays in a way that like I shoot and I get back and I'm outside of like a double move. So because I'm set up like probably 13 inches outside of a foot unit, then opportunity shot doesn't really work too well for me. And I generally save my dice for some other plays here. But it is a nice one. It is a good one if you take levy. Okay.
Yeah, and it's activation and reaction like Iberia. So could you? They move in, you could activate opportunity shot and then activate Iberia after that. So shoot and then basically move off.
That's pretty good. I think you can. See, this is the beauty of it. We get set in a way and you play it in a way and then someone else comes and goes, how about this? How about option C? You didn't even look at that. Yes, I think you could. Yep, that's a good one.
But I think the downside is it is an activation, so if you did Iberia, that'd be your second one.
Yeah, so you get a
turn.
fatigue.
So you'd end up with a fatigue.
Yeah.
But they could come in, you could shoot, you can move 12 inches, and then if you actually end up within medium of somebody else, then you throw some javelins at them too at the end of that move, assuming you're the warriors.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You could play it right. I tend to do the shoot and scoot and just try to hold back because, boy, seriously, like you showed me in our game, when you catch those ponies, you just pull those guys off and pull them down, and that's the end of them, right?
Just like, that's punching them, yeah.
No Iberia for you.
Okay, cool. Well, let's head down to Stunned, and this is also another common ability, and it's an activation reaction as well, so that's the third one we've seen so far. And play when a unit with at least one fatigue is activated for a movement or a shooting. The activation is canceled, and the unit may not be activated again this turn. Wow.
So this is huge.
Yeah.
This is like, to me, there's like two things the Spanish really do well. You can play some of these plays to fatigue bomb your enemy, like with a 4-man mounted warrior, go in, make some plays, drop a bunch of fatigue. and you use Battlecast to move it around. And then when a unit tries to move, you could put that fatigue on like their 8-man Hearthguard pack, because a lot of people like to have that. They like to have like the power unit. So if someone's running a power unit, you just make sure there's fatigue on it. You could cycle it over with Battlecast. We'll see later. And as long as they have one fatigue, when they go to activate to move, you're just like, no, you're not. And it's a common die.
Yes, that is good. So a couple of things here. So play when the unit's activated for a movement or a shooting. So you kind of mentioned multiple fatigue. So if they start the turn with one fatigue, they can rest, and then it's too late to use this one. So you do need the two to stop them down for sure.
You do.
But it's a good way to kind of keep them honest, and they're going to have to burn another dice to keep them fresh. When you got a big Hearthguard unit, depending what abilities you have, you might just disregard that fatigue because you're going to kick so much ass anyways. But against the Spaniards, you will reconsider that play.
That's right.
And then just the permanent shutting it down, that's pretty huge. I think that's one of the huge strengths of the Pagan Roost board is the freezing ability. So this one is basically kind of echoing that. I think that's really powerful. It does have the fatigue limitation, but when you're in turns 3 and 4, I mean, you're going to have fatigue all around, and you're going to be shutting something down. And then, so we talk about activation reaction. So this is already the second one where you're kind of messing with their battle plans, because Iberia, you're basically moving out of the way or doing unexpected moves already, and then this is basically pausing, sticking them in place. So you kind of hemming them in here.
Yep. I like to play with the fatigue. I think that's super powerful with this board. So I have this one loaded up almost every turn. Once the fatigue starts getting dealt, it's a great play, and it keeps them stressed. So that's good.
Excellent. Do you want to go down to exhausting fight?
Sure. So exhausting fight is one of the great ways to deal fatigue. Like if you want to play with like a unit that's kind of like a fatigue bomb to get in there and start dishing fatigue. Exhausting fight is a melee or shooting reaction, and that's awfully nice because you can break it either way. During this melee or shooting, any unit that rolls more than 6 attack dice will take an extra fatigue at the end of the melee and shooting, and may not be activated again this turn. So, like, to me, 2 things jump out, right? I can use this like as one of my little bits on my fatigue bomb play, but it's also great for the people who like to have like overactive Hearthguard or a Death Star. You put this down there, that Death Star is going to get to do one thing, and then it's going to get this exhausting. I play exhausting fight if it takes a big shoot, like a Stents unit of 12 Breton Hearthguard comes up. I'm going to play this. They'll shoot at me once, and they get their fatigue, and they're done.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yep.
It's the second ability that shuts them down for the rest of the turn, and for melee, it's definitely that's a 6 warrior unit. That's going to be most of the fighty units. Once you're down below that amount, you're probably not voluntarily throwing those guys in anyways.
Exactly.
With the shooting, it's a little tougher. It has to be Hearthguard, like you mentioned, because warriors and levy generally won't get more than 6 without a little boost from some saga abilities. So that's good. Now, is this? I always get confused with these dice versus the Norman dice. So is this a rare or a uncommon?
Sorry, that's an uncommon. I'm saying semi-rare. It's uncommon. The flag is your rare. So so this is where these uncommon are so useful, and why it kind of pushes me away from the foot warriors. I need these uncommon for Iberia. I need them here for exhausting fight, and light horse is one we'll get to later. That's another great one. Battle Chaos calls for it. So there's great plays, but they're going to call for your uncommon. So that'll be like what kind of straps you in a term. Like, what do I want to do? How many uncommons do I have?
Okay. Yeah, well, I guess we'll take a look at that as we go along here. But yeah, it looks like a solid ability, even just for the extra fatigue at the end of the combat. is nice. Make sure they got 2 for for their next turn.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Moving down to Desperate Tactics. So this is 2 uncommon dice. It's a melee reaction. So this is, I think we've had all reaction abilities so far. giving you.
Are you seeing a theme?
Giving you some flavor, yeah.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll see some normal ones up here. But so melee reaction, each enemy unit engaged in this melee takes 1 fatigue, but generates 2 extra attack dice. Okay. So it's each enemy unit, so it could be the warlord plus another unit. They're going to get 2 extra attack dice on you.
Yep.
But it's a melee reaction, so the timing of this is it's before the combat even starts.
Correct. Step 0.
Step
so you're
0.
Gonna drop a fatigue. And so just a couple thoughts with this one. So you hate giving out the 2 attack dice, but if you pair it with Exhausting Fight, it's a big spend, but you're putting 3 fatigues on the enemy with no intention to spend any, because your point is you're just trying to like get the fatigue on the table. And then if you have like a 4-man pack of warriors that are like going in here to dish out the fatigue, then okay, fine, you get 2 more dice. But my point is I want to just fatigue bomb you. So these 2 things, Desperate Tactics and Exhausting Fight, is a good way to do it. You can also pair it with, later on you'll see Spanish Perfidy are like a 1-2 punch. They are a perfect synergy to be played together. By itself, though, you look at it and you're like, I get 1 fatigue, but I'm giving them 2 attack dice, and that does hurt a little bit.
Yeah, it's not too bad. 2 dice, I think, is a bit much, but the 2 extra attack dice hurt for sure. But you're going to have the opportunity to spend it, if you want. So you could actually, the one thing I'm thinking of is you're a Hearthguard unit going from armor 5 to 6 with that extra fatigue. I think more than offsets the extra attack dice, as long as they don't have a way to take it back down or any kind of other saga abilities. So it's kind of a way to kind of go in and do some damage without taking much in a return, but potentially. But 2 dice. We'll see how that adds up in the overall thing. Okay, do you want to pop up to the top there?
Sure. Burning Sun is a uncommon die, and it's a shooting. If the target enemy loses at least 1 model during step 5 of this shooting, it may not be activated until the end of the current turn. The wording is a little wonky here. If you read the book, what it basically does is you shut that unit down for the turn if you get a hit. And so what this one is like, it's again kind of situational, but if you combine this with an Iberia, let's say your enemy's kind of funneling up and they have 1 big unit at the front and they're kind of deployed in depth and they're coming up, you could if he doesn't activate his units right, you could run up your unit of say 12 warriors, throw 6 javelins, play Burning Sun. If you get a hit, then that unit is done, and it can end up blocking like everyone behind it, right? So it's another mess with them. Like, and again, you got to get a hit, so they're gonna have to you're gonna have to make your hits. They're gonna have to muff a save at least there. But I've used it before, and it is very frustrating when the enemy is like, you catch them out. They're in a bad situation. They're deployed in depth, and they're like, well, that's the unit that's blocking everyone in. I hope you enjoyed your turn.
Yeah, awesome. So this is the 3rd ability that can shut somebody down for the end of their turn. So you mentioned Iberia. Basically this will do nothing if you use it during your turn, as far as I read correctly. Yeah. Because they're not going to be moving or activating anyways. Exactly. There might be some weird... well, you could use it against another Spanish player just to lock them in place.
There you go. Good one. And I'm trying to remember, so who else? The Franks have a kind of out-of-order activation thing, but yeah, it's generally you want to pair it with an Iberia, so you're like popping out and messing with someone during their turn.
Okay. So, yeah, not too bad. Doesn't improve the shot, so you need a good size unit in the first place to make sure 6 shots should probably get a guy,
Yeah.
depending what you're throwing at. And so yeah, just by that, it's kind of almost like a 2 dice kind of activation, because you need to use either Opportunity Shot or Iberia to get it going. But okay, not too shabby there. The next one down is Light Horses, and this is a common and uncommon, so it's another 2 dicer, and it's a activation ability. So activate for a movement one of your mounted units that is equipped with javelins. This unit may shoot once before moving. Oh, that's cool. And once after its movement, but on different targets each time. Okay, cool. I'm liking that. The armor of the unit shot at is reduced by 1 for the resolution of these shootings. So the armor of the unit. So both of them will get that armor reduction. So,
Correct.
That's cool. That's fun.
Yes. So it's a little spendy, and you do have to set it up right? Because you're talking javelin shooting, so that means in order to really pull this off with maximum efficiency, your unit of warriors needs to start within javelin range. So the way that this is typically launched is you watch your opponent play, and you save at least 1 Iberia die, like after his last activation, to slip out a unit of warriors, move them within javelin range, they shoot in your opponent's turn from Iberia, and then in your turn you run Light Horse on them, and then you shoot again, and then you move and you shoot again. You're getting 2 shots with no fatigue. Now at the end of that Light Horse activation, you're sitting with the 6 inches of a warrior unit, so you really probably want to have 1 more activation to hustle the back out of there with the fatigue, because if you stay there, that unit's going to get blasted. So this is part of the whole shoot and scoot. You got to kind of, the Spanish board, it does take practice, and I played it quite badly for quite a while. You know what I mean? You mess around, and I tried for a while running 48 warriors, and they die like flies, right? But I know that was stupid, but I like to try the odd builds, and that certainly qualifies for one. But eventually, I figured out, wait, that's silly. That's not how you do this.
That would have been awesome to see on just with that looks pretty big on the tabletop. Yes. Cool. Yeah, I agree with you. Say this one's interesting just because it's only during your turn that you can use this. So like you said, you have to set it up. I think the bang for your buck on this is phenomenal. Basically a shooting in a second, or a shooting in a movement, is going to take 2 dice anyways, and then on top of this, you're getting an extra kick for your volleys. I think that's awesome.
Yep, big play.
So that one's probably like a more of a late game type thing, would you say? Or do you try to make it happen?
If the dice come out right, and your spacing is right, then you could run it. I mean, if you get the right dice, you could run it from and I should throw something else out too. When I run the Spanish, I always, if I have a choice, I roll and I win the roll-off for who gets to go first. I'm always going to defer because I'm a reactive warband, and I love that I can run Iberia after my opponent. And if I play a scenario where I get 3 defensive dice, well, put 1 on Iberia. If you get it, you could also get Reconquista and shut them down. So you're reacting. If you go second, your opponent moves, then you use Iberia, run up. You can start on turn 1 and just start whittling them away. And I had a fun game with Adam Trunzo's Moors before the big showdown, and that's what I did. I kept sneaking them in, shoot, whittle them down, pull back, sneak them in, shoot, whittle them down, and then at some point, battle is drawn, and then you got to fight.
Then you got to fight.
That's it.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds cool. It's kind of it's fun looking at how they integrate all these shooting warbands, but kind of still make them a little different from each other too. So yeah, I like how this is shaping up. So you want to go down to Spanish
sure.
Perfidy?
Yeah, Spanish Perfidy is a melee reaction, and I should point out it's a great pairing with Desperate Tactics. They're both melee reactions. Your Desperate Tactics will load up and make Spanish Perfidy work. And here's how it works. So Spanish Perfidy says, if all enemy units in this melee have 1 or more fatigue and none of yours has any, the enemy will only generate half their normal number of attack dice during step 1 of the melee. Now, it's especially it's especially juicy if you can catch it with a half guard attack. But Desperate Tactics gives you like the fatigue you need, and so you just play them in the right order. You play Desperate Tactics first, drop the fatigue on the enemy unit, and go, oh, by the way, now that you have a fatigue, Spanish Perfidy, and you get half your dice. It's spendy, but it still is a nice play.
Oh, true. Yeah, that would be 3 dice, but going against that big Hearthguard block, dropping over from 24
then it becomes perfect.
to 12. And especially going into the second half of the game, too, a lot of units are going to have a fatigue on them anyway. So, once you're in the second half of the action, you don't necessarily need Desperate Tactics to start pulling this off. But it's funny. So Desperate Tactics, those 2 extra attack dice they generate. It'll only be 1 after Spanish
That's right.
Perfidy. So,
sorry.
You're cutting it in half. That's that's awesome. I do like the kind of anti-Death Star nature of this board. A lot of kind of wonkiness that can happen in this game comes from those big Hearthguard units, I think. So it's nice that they have a rock to their paper out there. And I think these guys. So you must have fun playing John with this big 12-man.
I do, and just a quick tale like how it can work when you make all the pieces work. So we did a run-out game. He wanted to see the Spanish before Adepticon, so I brought him over, and he was running his Norse Gale, the ones that he took to Adepticon and won it all with, right? So I mean, tooled up, ready to go, and we played the river crossing one, and by playing my board actually quite nicely, his Norse Gale briefly got across the river, and I shut down his Hearthguard for the whole game. They never moved, and I was dishing fatigue, running around, shooting, and he was missing all the saves, and I went home and I won that game. So how often does that happen, right?
I'm feeling pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, I'm serious. Write it down. But I mean, it's just, it takes a little practice, and you're gonna take a little while to scale it, but if you get it running right, this can be really a little frustrating for some of the foot war bands.
Yeah, and it almost seems like you might if you were accustomed to running the 12th man Hearthguard unit in your list, just playing the Spanish after listening to what we're talking about, you might just switch to 2 units of 6 specifically going against them, or
absolutely
kicking your units down a peg or 2, because we know when you get in the Warriors, we're going to open up on them anyways. But then, the best bang for your buck on all of these is shutting down those big units. Yep. So if you got a nice little unit of 6 Hearthguard next to the one that just got shut down, you're still going to get some action in, hopefully. But we're not saying for sure, because there's still 3 more.
That's right.
Orders reaction abilities. These are orders reaction.
We could call this column the Trail of Tears, because it will make some people cry, especially if they get caught out and they haven't seen it before. People get a little frustrated.
Okay. Yeah, I got just a smidge taste of it in our game, but so these are all orders reactions. So these will take place kind of after your opponent's allocated their dice, but kind of before they started moving units around. And as always, we go on for way too long talking about Saga, so that is where we're going to cut the first part of our Saga Spanish battle board review. I think Monty and I are having some fun with this one, and if you have anything that you would like to add so far or anything we're missing, please post below, or you can also hit me up on Twitter at Wisco Horndog. Love talking that saga wherever I can find it. And I think that's about it for this week. Like and favorite this shit. And if you got a buddy who is thinking about Crescent and Cross war bands and Spanish in particular, please share this video with them. It'd be much appreciated. And I'm going to catch you guys next week for part 2. See ya.
Saga!